Hello. Morning, people. How's everyone doing? What? It got rid of my background? Yeah, there we go. Perfect. Virtual background is here. Hello, everyone. How's it going? Please check in. I'll start with that. Welcome to an awesome Saturday. For folks who are joining me for the very first time, hello, my name is Utkarsh, but I prefer to go by UT. I am a coach and a streamer, I would say, for Major League Hacking. I have been streaming for more than 2 years now, possibly. So yeah, I am excited for this session. Now, folks who joined me last Saturday where I accidentally started the stream, welcome back. The check-in link is in the chat, but if you missed it, let me share it again. There you go. The check-in link is again in the chat. So please do check in. While you check in, let me just quickly give you an overview of what we are doing. What do I aim to do? Who is this session for? And yeah, how we'll proceed with this. Okay, so the session is called as React JavaScript interview, like interview prep kind of, right? So we say be interview prepared, JS and React. So that basically means that I'm going to focus on JavaScript and React. Now, what this means, since it's be interview prepared, I won't be kind of going through beginner level stuff. Okay, so I'm not going to start from beginner. My aim is to kind of cater to the audience where people know JavaScript, people know React, but kind of a refresher in for their memory, kind of like different aspects of questions that could be asked, stuff like that. So it won't be beginner level, even though there will be like some beginner level work that we will do, some things that would be very obvious and you will be like, oh yeah, I know this, I know that, and so on and so forth. So yeah, there will be some beginner level stuff, but it is not aimed at beginners. So I won't be stopping to explain like different data types in JavaScript, for example, or how do you set up a React project. So I won't be kind of explaining that. My focus, as I said, would be more on interview side of questions, or more like understanding of some of the things. Example, like let's say var, let, const, what, uh, how they work, hoisting, how can we like practically see it and see what output it prints, stuff like that. React renders, for example, when does React render? And I'd say like when people say that React renders when state changes, it is half correct. So it's nearly correct, but it's an incomplete answer. So we'll basically go through some of those things. We'll actually see it practically happening. We'll see what it logs, what we can see in the console, so on and so forth. Okay, so that's a quick overview of these sessions. So I have 4 sessions, 2 sessions today, 2 sessions tomorrow, uh, back to back, all back to back. So example, 2 sessions today will be like first 2 hour, and then again next 2 hours after that. So 4 hours together. And I definitely understand that it gets overwhelming listening to someone speak for like 4 hours. Uh, so what we'll do is we'll take like 15 minutes break between session 1 and session 2, and in session 2 we'll continue where we left off. Cool. And finally, I normally have motivations for all these sessions. So this session, like all these 4 sessions, the motivation is basically I have been on taking the interview side but also giving the interview side. So most of these questions come from those interviews that have been on either side of the table, that have happened on either side of the table. And there have been so many instances where I've thought like, oh yeah, this is obvious, but no, it isn't. And that's why it's basically also a refresher for me, in a way that in future when I have to get back to like interviewing, then I can just quickly watch my own videos and maybe take a look at my own code base and quickly understand it. Okay. And finally, actually, now the finally bit. If you want to follow along, everything that we do, every piece of code that we write will be pushed to GitHub. So here is the GitHub link for you all. Yes, yeah, as you can see, it was set up last week because I thought our session is last week. Big mistake. But anyways, uh, yeah, it is set up. There's nothing like left files, but they don't have anything. It's like empty files. So that's what we are going to focus on as part of these sessions. Okay. I will be on and off screen so that you get the full screen kind of to work with it, or like see the code, follow the code. Uh, I would say if you want to set it up, if you want to run it locally, two options for you. Uh, I would say either fork this and then clone your version of it, or you can just download it as a zip or something and then locally open the folder. You need to have Node.js installed. I am going to use Node version 22. Oh, I have an update here. Oh, didn't know that. I am going to use Node version 22.20.0. Uh, so all of these would be working on these versions, but I guess even on lower versions, it should work fine. I don't see any issues happening. And anything else? No, I think that's good to go. Perfect. So without any further ado, let's get started. Okay, any questions from anyone in the chat before we actually get started about anything? Hopefully, I've cleared all the prerequisites that you need to have slash know for these sessions. Okay, going to take the silence as golden and just carry on with it. Perfect. So we'll start with some warm-up questions and we will see what happens, how it works, and yeah, let's get directly into it. Okay, so the first is some basics. Okay, so let's start with some basics and then we can move along. So var versus let versus const. Okay, uh, I presume. Okay, I presume that people know if conditions here. People know like what what would happen, like not what would happen, but more like how to create a function and and other JavaScript stuff. Okay, so let's create a quick function. I'm going to call it example function, and in this example function, I am going to very simply say that if something is true, so I'm going to just do if true, then var a equals 1, then we have let b equals 2 and const c equals 3. Okay, now I'm going to do some console log. I'm going to console log a, and I am going to also print it. So a, I'm going to do same for b and c. Okay, now the question is, what happens when we run this? Currently nothing, because I have not called the function or invoked the function. So let me also invoke the function. Again, the question is, what happens when we run this? Okay, we have a if condition where if true, then we have 3 variables, and then we are console logging that out. So let's try it out. Okay, that's the best way to learn something. Okay, so when I run this, I hope to see all these variables printed. So I'm going to do node space session dash one forward slash 101.js. Okay, to run this locally. And I hit enter. And I get an A printed as 1. And then there's an error. Console.log B, reference error, B is not defined. And the program crashes. We never get to C. You can also run this in the browser, by the way. So if I go to the browser and I am going to go over to one of the brighter websites that I've built, and I am going to increase the font size here, paste it and hit enter. There we go. A1, and then ungot reference error, B is not defined. So what's happening here? Okay, so quick revision here. That is that in our code, or we can just see the code right here. So in our code, we have var a, let b, and const c, all of them inside a if block. Okay, so I'm going to call this a block, if block, and there are 3 variables defined here. Now a gets printed because it's initialized with var. Okay, now var is a function scoped variable declaration. So any variable that is declared with the keyword var is function scoped, which means it's available inside this whole of example. Okay, in this function example, it can be invoked or called or referenced anywhere inside this function. So it doesn't care that it is inside an if block. It's available anywhere inside the example function. Let and const, these are block scoped. Okay, so think of it as like if this is their world. Okay, so let and const can only survive or are only visible, are only available inside the block they are in. Okay, so the if block is kind of their world. If they are invoked or called outside, they disappear. Okay, and we never get to see because B, like the program crashes at B, and so the next part is never called. What if I do it the other way around? So if I kind of call this console.log C before I call B, now what would happen based on whatever we have learned so far? Let's try it out. Same thing. A is defined, but C, like at C, the program crashes and we get a reference error. C is not defined. Okay, so C is not defined, reference error. and B, like we never reach B. The program never reaches the line B because it crashed at C. And that's it. So var function scoped, it doesn't care about the if block, it's available anywhere inside the function. Let and const are block scoped, like wherever, in whichever block they are defined, that is their world. It won't go outside of that. And the problem is that you should, like, you will see every new code base, everything now uses uh, let and const rather than var. Okay, because uh, when people think of variables, what they think of is that if I create something inside this box or this block, it should be only available to me inside that block. If it goes outside, we run into problems of kind of reinitializing it. We can run into problems of trying to uh, overwrite it, even though we did not mean to, maybe accidentally overwriting things. So these are problems, like, and these lead to a lot of subtle bugs in your code, which is why no one uses var anymore. But you will still find it. You will still find it used in a lot of libraries when they have to declare things at top level. So something called as top level functions or top level variables. So those things exist. One of the top level variables would be, let's say, window. Okay, I would say this is defined at a very top level and it gives you all the information about a window. It is available on the browser anyway. So yeah, one of the top level variables or functions, you can say. Okay, so that's about top level. That's about var, that's about let, that's about const. Okay, perfect. Good to go so far. Okay. Okay, I just want to clear this one thing here. Like var is global, but global in what sense? So if I go back to my function, so after example, if I try to do console log a, provided that I don't have C and B, so my program doesn't crash, this will not be available because var is global but inside the function. Okay, so just to let you know, slash help you think about it, visualize it, that var, whether like we say it's global scope, but global scoped inside that function, okay, wherever it is defined. So it won't be available outside here, even the other way around. So if I take this out here, I should see a printed 2 times, but nope, that wouldn't happen. Like now the function is not invoked in general because it crashes at this point, so that doesn't work. But yeah, so just to clarify, that global scope, but inside the function it is defined. Okay, not outside. No worries, you are absolutely welcome. That is why we're having these sessions. So I learn from you and you like learn from some things from me. Okay, I'd prefer to learn from you all in these sessions. uh, clear up my understanding about things. Cool, thanks a lot. And hopefully we have like kind of understood that. Let's move on to the next one. Okay, so we'll make a quick note here. We will say where is function scoped. Oh, not here. We should make the note here. So this prints let is block scoped. So this fails. Const is also block scoped, but program never reaches here because it crashes on B. Okay. And what is the error that we get? I'll also add that quickly. Okay, and that's our first one right there. Perfect. Let's move on to the next question. Const. Okay, so now one of the major understanding of const is that it is immutable. Okay, the idea is that you use let for anything mutating, or mutating means you can reassign things, and you use const when you don't want to reassign stuff. Okay, example, let's see an example. Uh, yeah, there we go. Let's do let reassign equals 1 and const no reassign equals 5. Okay, now if I just do a quick console.log of reassign comma no reassign, I'll get 1 5. Okay, perfect. Now let me try to reassign it to, let's say, 2 3. Now if I do a console log of reassign and no reassign, it is 3 and 5 because we have reassigned it to 3. Reassign to 3. Wow, that was terrible variable naming from my end. Now if I try to no reassign to 6, I get an error. Type error. Assignment to constant variable. So you're trying to assign some value to a constant variable which is not supposed to change. So if I do this, it still remains at 3 5 because, well, this whole part failed, right? This whole uh, theory of reassigning to constant failed. But there is exceptions. Okay, there are exceptions always. So let's try those exceptions out. So I'm going to say if this was our one, var versus let versus const. Let's go with our 2. This is const doesn't mean immutable. Okay, so I'm going to do const user equals name is, let's say, mlh, and age is, let's say, 25. Is mlh 25 years old? I don't know, maybe. And now I'm going to do user dot age equals 26. Do you think MLH has aged by a year? Maybe. And I am going to do console.log of this user.age. Okay. Similarly, let me do another one. Const nums, which is numbers. Let's say I have 1, 2, 3. And in nums, I'm going to do a dot push, which is an array method, push 4 into this. And now I'm going to console.log nums. Okay, now the question is, will this throw an error? Okay, the answer is right here. Technically it wouldn't, but what would happen? Let's try it out and let's print it. I will also, after every session, like after every snippet, I'll just comment it out so that it doesn't interfere with the next bits that we're doing. It prints out 26 and 1.1 2 3 and 4. Okay, so no errors. Okay, so what's happening here and what does this mean? So const means that the binding cannot change, which means that you cannot reassign the variable, but the value that it points to can be mutated. Okay, so what's happening in this piece of code? Okay, let's take it to the browser as well. So what's happening here? We are saying that we have assigned a constant, like we have created a constant which references or points to this particular object. Okay. And that's fine. And then we try to update one of the keys inside it. So we are trying to say that the value that like this user variable, this constant points to, is mutating, is updating. So it works fine, it doesn't throw any error. But if I do it the other, like if I try to reassign the whole object to something else, then it will throw an error. Okay, it will be like, nope, this can't happen. You're trying to mutate, or you're trying to tell me that I have to point to a completely different location, and that's not possible. Similarly, in nums, this array, we are saying that here is an array. Okay, so we have created the, like there's this data that exists at a particular memory location. Please point this variable to that memory location. Sure. Okay, so there's some data, some value that exists, and we have created a constant variable saying that point to that location. So it's like, sure. Then I say, okay, I want to update the value in that location. Constant is like, yep, sure, go for it. But when I try to do something like nums equals to, let's say, an empty array, or a new array of 1 2 3 4 5 6, that would fail, because now I'm telling it that, hey, you were pointing to this particular location, but don't point to that location now, point to a completely new location. And it goes like, nope, I can't do that. I'm a constant variable, I'm supposed to point to only one location. Okay, so that's about how you can, technically reassign, but it's not exactly reassignment. Okay, it's, what we are doing here is we are telling it that while pointing to the same memory location, may update the data, update the value, and that's fine. So constant means the bindings cannot change, but uh, the value can be updated. Okay, value can be mutated. So if I have to move from like 1 2 3 4 to 2 3 4 5 6, all I have to do is try to delete this one and add 5 and 6. So it will be still pointing to the same memory location, okay, but with a completely new set of values. So if I do like nums dot unshift or nums dot shift, I think it's shift, confirming, yep, now 1 is deleted, 2 3 4, and then I can do like push 5 and push 6, and we have reached from 1 2 3 4 to 2 3 4 5 6. Oh, 1 2 3 more like 1 2 3 and then 4 to 2 3 4 5 and 6. Okay, we are still pointing that, like this variable is still pointing to the same memory location, the data is getting updated, that is okay, uh, but the memory location stays the same. But this only would work, okay, this only would work when you are working with like mostly objects. If you are working with primitive data types, example, let's say a number or maybe a string, then anytime you try to reassign the whole thing, you're basically saying, I'm telling you to point to a new memory location, and that's not allowed. Okay, so works because we are not reassigning the variable, we are just updating the value. Okay, Similar thing here. uh, but what would not work is user equals to this will throw error because we are reassigning the variable. And similarly, nums equals, let's say, a new empty array will exactly do the same thing. Cool. So that's about const and reassignments. Okay. Now, one of the popular interview questions would be, uh, so if I don't want this reassignment to happen, what can I do? Okay. So how can you make an object immutable? Okay, which means that it cannot be updated. How would you do that? And I'm going to leave that question hanging, and I would prefer that you all try to kind of quickly Google that, not AI that. Reason being, you'll find some more solutions to it. Okay. Hmm. Perfect. Now moving on to the third one. I'm not going to give the hint away this time. I've learned from my mistakes. Uh, let's try the third one. So I am going to create a variable var x equals 1, var x equals 2, console.log x. Oops. And I'm going to, actually, I'll have to do let y equals 1, let y equals 2, and console.log y. Now, IDE is kind of putting water on my plants, so I'm going to move this out to browser. Okay, now question, what will happen? Yes, that is correct, and that is slightly long explanation, like a better explanation. Yes, like that is an easier way to kind of visualize it. I would say this explanation is a very visual way of checking it. Perfect. Thank you so much. Uh, okay, so going back to the third one, or coming back to the third one, what will happen when I hit enter? Okay. Remember about let and const. Remember about the whole block scope, function scope. Okay. Uh, I'm going to hit enter and let's see it out. Ta-da! Identifier y has already been declared and it doesn't even print anything before that. So what's happening here? And like, what are we doing? So if I do it step by step, like if I don't declare this block and I do this, x prints out to be 2 and I just print the y block, it says identifier y has already been declared. Okay, so what's happening? So var, as I said, is always a problem. And the problem is that var will let you redeclare the same variable anytime in your code. So you have created the exact same variable. You have initialized, like you have used the var keyword to kind of uh, define the variable declaration type, and you have initialized it with a different value. Var is like, yep, sure, I will just forget about what the previous, like if I have variable x, it goes like, okay, I'm going to just forget about what x was before this. I am going to redeclare it for the user with the new variable value. Okay, with the new value. So he goes like, yep, I don't care about this one. I'm just going to care about this one, and I'm going to print that out. But if you use let and const, it goes like, in this same block, you have tried to initialize the same variable with the exact, like the same variable name with different values. And that's not allowed. Okay. So var is very forgiving. And you may think that's a good thing, but no, it's not. This is how you accidentally overwrite variables. Okay, you wouldn't even know. Your IDE won't tell you, no one will complain, and suddenly when you run the code, you're like, huh, I was expecting one here. Why is it not one? Why is it two? In terms of let and const, your IDE actually helps. You're saying it actually tells you an error that, oh, you cannot redeclare this block scope variable y. So in the same block, you have tried to redeclare the variable, and that is not allowed. Please don't do that. Okay. So, and you can create like, but if you wrap this inside a block, okay, and by inside a block, it means that you have given it like two boxes or two spaces, okay, then it's fine. Then it doesn't complain. As you can see, it's like, okay, my whole world exists inside this curly brackets, these blocks, and no one else is like in this block, no one else is redeclaring the same variable name with different value. I'm happy. Okay, I don't care. This one, it's like, yep, my whole world exists inside this block. I'm happy because no one else is redeclaring it. So if I try to run this piece of code, works perfectly fine. Okay. Now the question is, what if I want to do const y equals 5? Now I'm trying to declare the same variable name with a different what's the word? With a different declaration type with a different value. And again, even in the same block, it goes like, well, you're trying to recreate this exact variable name. Please don't do that. Okay, because then I won't know which variable to use to point to which memory location, and what type of that what would be that type. Would it be a constant? Would it be something that can be overridden later? Not sure. So please don't do that. And if I actually remove this, then this one is happy. It's like, yep, sure, you can do this. What if I try to do two consts? That's again the same problem. Okay. So this was about blocks. And I hope you learned something new about the blocks, because curly brackets actually work as blocks, just curly brackets, nothing else. This was new knowledge for me, actually. And I learned it like, I guess 5 or 6 months ago. Yeah, 6 months ago, I actually came across this. I was like, wait, really? In all my years, I never knew that this is possible. You can just have curly brackets to say this is a block. I thought you always had to do something like either it's a function or it's inside like if or something like that. I didn't know that. So now I'm imparting that knowledge to you all. Hopefully, you learn something new as well. Uh, so, yeah, var let const. Var looks like, oh, yeah, everything is hunky dory. Please don't use it, because it's going to lead to these very subtle bugs and you will never know about it. Okay, you will never, ever, ever know about it. So I am going to leave this like this, and we'll add a comment saying this will throw an error because we are redeclaring same variable name in the same block. But if we wrap it in a block, it won't throw any errors. So I'm going to just copy exactly this, but I am going to wrap it in a block. Comment the above and then run. The above let y declarations and then run. So you'll have to comment this up, like comment this out, because the code will run like line by line, or actually let's say it would be parsed line by line. So if there's valid code even before we actually reach this part, it doesn't print. Okay, we actually saw that. So if now I know that var x equals to 1, var x equals to 2, this console log will print x equals to 2 because we saw that when we individually ran it. This one will throw an error, but if I hit enter, we will never see this line, because at parse time it actually catches the error and it goes like, so before the code even reaches the running part. Okay, so you can say like, you can divide the code into like two segments. You can say there is a parsing and then there is the actual running. Okay, so at the parsing part, where it actually tries to understand all the variables, where JavaScript is trying to understand all the variables, ensure that you have not redeclared, at that exact time it catches this error and it goes like, no, not allowed. Okay, or like, no, never, please don't do this, and it throws an error. So before even the code runs, even before this legitimate section runs, there is an error. Error at parse time. I'm going to copy this. Da, 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 da. Yeah, perfect. Okay, and so this was redeclaration of variables. I need to learn to type. Okay, any questions, anyone, so far? Sorry, I've been like writing things down and I've possibly been too quick, but hopefully you have learned something. Oh, there is a thank. I don't know if this is for me or someone in the chat, but either way, thank you so much. Okay, the next one, let's go to the next bit. So you must know about the type of keyword. Okay, so type of tells you what is the type of a value, not a variable. Okay, even if a variable is assigned to a value, then of course it will tell you the type of that variable. Yeah, but type of is used because variables don't have types. Okay, so this is from Kyle Simpson, whose book I've read. So variables don't have types, values have types. But then you take those values and you assign them to variables, then variables automatically have some type of, they're kind of referencing or they're pointing to some value which may be of certain type. What this means, okay, if this sentence is confusing, so we have type of, and I say 42 or 43 of whatever, it returns number in a string. Okay, then if I go for, let's say, GHW, it returns string in a string. Okay, so type of tells me what is the type of a particular value. So type of true, boolean. Okay. What about type of undefined? It is undefined but in a string. Okay. What about type of a function? So a function which I'm like kind of not naming or not declaring. I'm just going to go like, yep, there's a function. Actually, let's do this. Yeah, we'll have to do that. Sorry. Function. Okay. So things so far and so forth, everything is fine. So we have all the basic data types. Yeah. So if I go for, let's say, 42.45, it's still a number. Okay, not like some programming languages differentiate between, is it a floating point number or is it not a floating point number. JavaScript's like, yeah, a number is a number. Okay, so we have type of undefined, type of true, type of string, type of number, all everything. So like all things good so far. So let me just create, this is 4, right? uh, 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 yep, 4. And this basically says type of. And so far we have tried all of these. I should have done it here, but that's fine. CLG, and here it returns this. Perfect. Sorry, give me one or 2 seconds. No, it won't be 1 second thing, but should be quick enough. Sorry about this. I should have done this before. But okay, so all these are, I would say, basic data types. Okay, no surprises, nothing. Yep, things are working fine, no issues. Primitive, I would say. Not even primitive, but more like, yes, these ones are completely understandable. Okay. Da, 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 da. And finally, I can move this right below this one so that, co-located is nicer to understand or reference later. Okay, so we have number, string, boolean, undefined, function, symbol. There's also another data type called as symbol. I don't know if you have used it. And it doesn't return undefined. Okay, let's see what it returns, and then we'll print it out here. It returns the type symbol, but without a string. Not without a string, but more like, because of console log, it's not visible, but there will always be a string. Okay, there will always be a string. I should copy this one. Okay, so all these basic, simple, easy to understand. So these are the classic ones. Okay, one thing to note is that type of will always return a string. Okay, so you cannot go like, if suppose you have a condition somewhere, so let's say const a equals 42. Okay, and then you try to do something like, if type of a is exactly equal to number. Actually, let's print out type of a. Okay, so it returns a string representation. That's very important, as I keep saying, because if you want to check that, okay, if type of a is exactly a number, then in that case I want to like do something like console.log mlh, okay, then this will not be possible because type of returns a string representation of everything. So you have to check it in a string. You have to say, okay, if the type of a is actually a number, but number which is which will return inside a string, then do this, then this function will work. Okay, so that is very important to note, that type of so note type of uh, always returns a string representation of type. Okay, and that's important because if I do it inside a console log, you will see that those strings kind of disappear, and that make you think that, oh, it's not exactly a string, it's always a string. Okay, console.log is trying to strip it off basically, but it all type of returns a string. So on, and so far hopefully everything has been easier to understand about type of variable and what it is, what it returns, what is the type, what is the data type of the returned data type. Now let's go towards some of the weird ones. Okay, uh, some of the weird ones to remember: we'll have null, we will have nan, we will have, let's say, an array, we will have an object, okay. Now before we actually run this, can anyone try and take a guess of what will these return? Let me come back on screen. Any guesses? What will these return? Take a guess. You don't have to be correct. uh, you don't have to google it, just try guessing. Meanwhile, let me quickly scan the chat. Okay, yes, there is an answer. Object. So for all of them, I presume you're saying object. uh, let's hit enter and see. Type of null returns object, type of nan returns a number, type of this array returns an object, type of this object returns an object, right? Perfect. We'll come back to this, but I was just quickly scanning chat to see if there are any questions. I think I had gone up until here. uh, just got here. What have I missed? So we are doing some, I would say, very fast paced interview questions, kind of, uh, or interview styled learning of JavaScript. So, you go into an interview, your interviewer shows you some piece of code, like, can you tell me about all the data types and what will it return? Or they show you this type of code, and you're like, I don't really know, or I'm confused, or maybe I don't remember. So, we are trying to kind of go through those kind of questions and see what we can remember and also form an understanding. So, not memorize it, but more like form an understanding of what's happening and why. Okay, and also pick out some quirky ones too, so that you can remember those. Remember the quirky ones. Okay, uh, so that's done, and thank you again. And now we'll go back to this one. Okay, so type of null returns an object. So each of these represent one console log up on top. Okay, let's focus on each of them individually. So null, for the null one, let's see. If type of is null and I try to compare them with object, it will return true. Now this is a bug from the very first version of JavaScript. Okay, so values were normally stored with some type of tag, and null was also stored as a tag which was the same one used for objects. and that's how we have ended up with this bug. Okay, so it's more of a bug in JavaScript, and this is never going to change because JavaScript normally does like there's a lot of code that depends on this bug now. Every library representation, every library that's been written, every piece of JavaScript that's been written kind of knows this, and they will like they have written code that will work around this. So yeah, it's a part of the JavaScript specification forever. Okay. uh Next one is this nan. Okay, so type of nan returns a number. Now nan stands for not a number, but its type is a number. Okay, let's give a couple of seconds for it to soak in. Nan stands for not a number, but the type of nan is a number. Is number. Is not is a number, it is the number. And that's because of a specification, IEEE specification, where floating point values that represent a wrong or invalid numeric result are technically still a number. Example 0 by 0. This is a number, this is a number, but 0 by 0 division is impossible. Okay, so it is not a number. It will not result in a number. Okay, that's the idea. And that's how it was designed, that you're trying to do some operation and that will not result into a number. That is why it returns not going to be a number, but the type of it is a number, is number, because well technically it was on a mathematical operation. You tried to do some mathematical operation which was wrong. Okay, so example, if I do parse int, which technically converts something to an integer, but instead I pass it a string, I tried to do some mathematical operation on a string, which resulted in not a number, but it was since done on a number. So that's why the type is number. Okay. But instead, if I do like, let's say 43.67627.2, it returns 43 because you tried to do some mathematical operation on a number which resulted in a number or a numerical output. So that's fine. Okay, hopefully that makes it understandable. Now one thing that I do want to try, let's see if it works. Math.sqrt square root of -1, which is technically an imaginary number. Okay, it resulted in not a number. Okay, and that is, again, you tried to do some mathematical operation, it failed, it resulted in nan or not a number, but the type of nan is still a number because it was done on some math or some numbers. Okay, whatever you did was tried happening on some math. Okay, cool. Next one is this one. Okay, and this is again one of the quirks. Type of something that we call array is returning as an object, because arrays are objects in JavaScript. Okay, they are objects with some special properties like length. Okay, so example, if I take this value and try to do some length, it returns me some value. Okay, so arrays are technically objects in JavaScript because that's how they are defined. They have some numeric keys, you can say, and a very special length property. So based on this length property, we can make decisions on where we want to add something, insert something, or like remove something. But as per JavaScript specifications, they are objects. Okay, and that's why you will hear sometimes people say everything is object in JavaScript. Not everything, but most of the things are. Okay, they just have a special property assigned to them. Now, if you do want to check if something is an array and not an object, you can do array.isArray, and that will return true. Okay. So then you basically, if you want to differentiate between something that is an array versus something that is an object, you can do array.isArray and pass it the array. Can be an empty array as well. Okay. And that should tell you, yep, this one is actually an array and not an object. And finally, I would say this. I think this is the most normal one of the lot, because technically this is an object. Okay. Objects in JavaScript are key value pairs, and this follows that specification. So it is of type JavaScript. Okay. Now there is one question: nan, null, undefined. Would love to know the difference among them. Perfect. Let's quickly have a discussion on it. So nan, null, and undefined. Let's see. So type of nan, actually let me clear this. Type of nan, type of null, and type of undefined. Okay, perfect. So we have just some type of printed out here. Type of nan, we actually discussed nan a bit right now, which is it's not a number. It means that you tried to do some mathematical operation, you failed, and it resulted in something that JavaScript was not able to parse or calculate or evaluate. You can say either of those words. Uh, Between null and undefined, let's go with undefined first. Undefined means something is not defined, which means that variable, that value does not exist. Okay. It's not there. Example, if I do let a equals to null, and then I try to do console.log of b, b is not defined. So technically b is undefined, right? Can I do a type of on something that is undefined? Yes, it results in undefined. You've tried to use something which you have never defined in the whole scope of JavaScript, like your code. Okay, not JavaScript, in your code. So it's not defined, and that is what results in undefined. But null means absence of a value. It's a proper valid data type for JavaScript. Okay. It means that I tried to define, or I actually defined a variable, I actually defined a value, and I'm saying, like, knowingly, that is empty or null. Okay. So it's absence of a value by telling it that, oh yes, you are null, you have to be absent, you don't have to be here. Or more like, I knowingly I'm saying I don't want a value to exist for this variable. Okay. So undefined is not defined, not referenced, never created. But on the other hand, if you create a value, assign it to null, you're saying I have this particular value which I want to be absent. Okay. It has to be absent, it has to be empty, it should not exist. So you assign it to null. Okay. Hopefully that makes sense. So if it's empty value, it would be null, right? But empty in what sense? So that is where the confusion begins. Okay. If I say it is an empty string, then you have technically said that, yes, it is an empty string, but there is still a value there, which is of type string. Okay. And you have not made it empty. You have just said that, set it to something which is visually, let's say, not present. So there is a string printed right here, visually not visible, but it has a value, it has an empty string value, but it's not null. Okay. Null means, like, take this variable pointed to some memory location that will never have a value or doesn't have a value, or maybe it had some value and now I have cleared it. I want to clear it out. So I'm telling, yeah, you look at this empty house. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Let's think about it this way. I create a variable which was looking at a house full of toys. And now I'm telling that variable, look at this empty house. Okay. So if I say look at an empty house, there's still a house, but there's nothing inside. Then I tell it, look at this piece of land with the house, but there is no house there. It's just a piece of land. And that would, I would say, is an analogy for null. Okay. Nothing exists there. It's void. Hope that made a bit more sense. Perfect. I am happy that you got it. And based on this, actually, let's go to the next one. Okay. Undefined versus not defined. So actually, this prints. I forgot what each of these printed. I mean, like more like I'm lazy. This would print object. I'm going to knowingly put it in string so that you don't forget that type of always returns a string representation of the type. To check array, do array dot is array and then pass it the hope this is correct. Yep. Will return true if an array. Let's also try it on an object so that you can actually see the difference. It will return a false. It will return not a false, it will return false. Sorry. But this also returns an object. And that's it. Fifth one. Undefined versus not defined. And they are not the same thing. Okay. Like maybe they are, maybe they are not. Let's see. I try to give up, like give away too much sometimes. Okay, what will this log? Let's hit enter and find out, because actually you know the answer. Okay, in your mind you know the answer what this will log. Oh, need to refresh. Yeah, there we go. Okay, var a console.log a returns undefined, b is not defined. Okay, so they're slightly different. Undefined means that the variable exists but has no value assigned it. Okay, assigned to it. So it will be initialized with something, like JavaScript will try to initialize it with something. Not defined means that it does not exist anywhere. So undefined, so going back to my previous discussion where we discussed about null and undefined, I was slightly misleading you there, or not exactly misleading you, but more like it was a better explanation for that particular question. But now if we enhance that explanation, the idea is that undefined is also a valid data type. You have tried to create a variable, but that variable does not have a value, and that's why it's undefined. But if you have not created a variable anywhere, you have not defined it. Okay, so it's not exactly undefined and not defined exactly the same. In that explanation it made sense when we talk about undefined versus null. But now if we drill deep into undefined, then there is a difference. Undefining like undefined will be returned when you have tried to create a variable, you did not give it a value, so it initializes with undefined. But if you tried to use a value which was never created in the first place, then it returns a reference error of like is not defined. Okay, and they are completely different things, but sometimes yes, this does confuse, like is not defined, is that undefined? uh mm, I mean, explanation wise sometimes it makes sense, like example in the previous explanation it made sense, but if we drill deep into it then it does not make sense. Okay, so with var this is possible. What about with let? Will this return the exact same thing? And let's make it b and c. Okay, so that I don't have any conflicting naming, or actually d, d and e. Okay, now if I hit enter, will I have the exact same print statements? Let's try it out. Yes, so d, I have created this variable, I have not given it a value, so JavaScript initialized it for me with undefined data type. Okay, so undefined value, not data type, undefined value. Okay, but e does not exist anywhere in my code, so it is not defined. So they have like very terrible naming, and that's why when you have to explain it, it becomes a bit more confusing. So apologies if I misled you in the previous one. uh, that was not my aim. My aim was to tell you not defined versus null, but now you understand undefined and not defined are completely different things. They sound very similar though. And the final one is const. So const, let's say x, x and y. Okay, well, I get the same thing. Let's hit enter and find out. Oops, there's a different error. Syntax error, missing initializer in const declaration. So this is how you come to know that actually whenever you create a const variable, you cannot leave it hanging. You have to initialize it with some value. Okay, because that's the only way it can actually know which house to point at or look at. Okay, for like var a and let d, you could say that yep, I'm going to tell you which house to look at in a bit. Okay, and when the program runs, it's like, oh, you never told me where to look at, so I'll just say I'm not looking at anything, I'm undefined. But with const, you have to initialize it with a value, you have to tell it what it has to look at. Okay, so that is why it's a slightly different error that you see here. Const always needs to be initialized. Can you initialize it with undefined? I did say it's a valid data type. Let's make it z, z and I don't know, GHW, so that doesn't conflict with any of the other variable names that we have used. Yes, you can technically define, initialize it with a valid data type for JavaScript, undefined, and it works. Okay, so hopefully now this has cleared up some confusion about undefined versus not defined versus null. Okay, so the explanation goes a bit like looking into void versus actually not looking at something. So JavaScript tries to be smart and initialize it for you depending on what type of variable it is going to be. So var and let will be initialized with undefined if you have not assigned a value to them. Const, you have to assign it a value, so otherwise you will get a different error. For what's the word, but if you want to initialize a const variable with undefined, that's completely fine because that's a valid data type for it. Okay, uh, yes, that is another good explanation. Yep, thank you so much for that. Undefined means I made a variable but did not give a value to it, and not defined is I did not create a variable or try to give it a value, but I just used it in my code. Yes. That's a very good explanation as well. Okay. So with this, let me just copy this, and can I just paste it right here? I just need to get rid of all these lines. And this one results in undefined. This is result, okay? And this is the error that we got. And we don't need all of this. And in this one, we have a completely different error. And in this one, we can initialize it with undefined, but these things are not needed. Who is complaining? Const declaration must be in. So your IDE is much better, right? Than non-IDE. So never use Notepad++ to code. That's a joke. That's a joke. You can use whatever you want. Okay. Anything that I'm missing? Oh, and one last thing. Remember we did, let's say, like console.log mlh, where the confusion actually kind of happens. I try to do console log of mlh. It says mlh is not defined. Okay. But that does not mean it's undefined. It just means that you have tried to use a variable that you have not created in your code. But if I try to check the type of it, it will be like, yeah, it's undefined. Okay. And that's where the confusion, okay, confusion is always there. So type of is, I would say, the only operator that will not throw a reference error on an undeclared variable. Okay. So it will return undefined. Now, this is a very standard way of checking like global things. Okay. Global values, global variables. Example, if I want to check if I'm working in a browser, okay, in a browser, window is defined. So if type of window is not double equals to undefined, because remember type of always returns a string, then I will say console.log, yay, inside a window. Oh, oops. I am missing a closing bracket here. Yay, inside a window. I think document is also another thing. Inside a document. Okay, perfect. Now let's try these two snippets of code here. So I'm going to comment all of this. No errors, no warnings. And now let's try those two lines. So there's this particular line and there is this particular line, and let's try to run this. And both of them did not result in anything. Okay. Try it again. Nope. If I do console.log ran but no output in node.js env. Okay. So I'll just print this out so that you know actually things are actually running. Hopefully even I will know that things are actually running. There we go. Ran but no output in node.js environment. So what we have checked is a kind of like where you would use it. Let's say you want to check for something, or you want to see that your code is running in a node environment versus a browser environment. So in browser, this if condition doesn't fail, because in browser window exists. Okay. And in browser document exists. What is a document in browser? Not do while document. Okay. So if I hover over it, as you can see, it actually selects everything that is on the left. Okay. And it says, oh yeah, this is a doc type HTML. There's the head part, there's the body part. And in that body, there's this divide root, there's this class app, there's this position. Okay. So document basically represents all these like things that you see on the left. And this exists in a browser environment, but it doesn't exist in a node environment. So if you have some special piece of code, let's say, that you want to check where it is running, excuse me, I'm going to sneeze. I said sneeze and I got a cough. Okay. So if you have a special piece of code running in like for browser, it has to do something different. In node environment, it has to do something different. Then you can check what is the type of that one. Ah, thank you. But I got a cough rather than a sneeze. That's so weird. Else you can say console.log sad, not a no window. Okay. Sad, no window, ran but no output in Node.js. Or well, this is technically incorrect now. Okay, hopefully this code now makes much more sense of where it is run, makes a ton of difference. Okay, based on which if condition or like which condition it's going to go into. Okay, so this is a very good use of type of variable. Okay, and that is why the whole confusion of, okay, if I try to define a variable which I have not used in my code, but I tried to use it in console log, throws a reference error. But I try to check what is the type of it, throws undefined. Okay, so type of doesn't return like reference error, it will return undefined. And this is one of the use cases of where you would actually use it. Okay, uh, that you would check, let's say if the type of window is not undefined, then I want to do something, or type of my like whatever variable, special variable is not undefined, then you want to do something. So normally you will see this condition whenever you use certain libraries which are supposed to work differently in browser versus differently in Node.js environment. uh, so yeah, this helps you make a decision on it. Okay, or let's say you want to know if you're running inside a mobile application or inside a browser. These things will help you uh, with it. I think user agent, how can I check user agent? Document or window? No, user agent, I forgot how to check user agent. User agent JavaScript. Oh, navigator.user agent. Okay, so to check if you are inside, let's say, a browser or not, you can do like let's navigator.user agent, and this tells you, okay, there is some variable that comes back. You can have a very special variable that you create. It can be a var or it can be a let defined at top level saying this is my special environment, which is something different. It could be very specific to some mobile. Okay, and then someone using your library can check that if that particular variable is not undefined, then you are running in the special mobile environment. But if that is undefined, then you are not running in that special mobile environment. You're running the code somewhere else. The user is using your app somewhere else. Okay, cool. Everything made sense so far? uh, I don't understand this question. These are built-in variables or keywords. So window and what's the word, document and navigator, yes, these are top level variables, as I would say. Think of it as like var defined variables, which are always present. So I'm not sure actually. I've never tried. Do you think? Uh, like I'm not sure if navigator is defined inside Node.js environment actually. So this would be a very good test. If type of navigator not equals to undefined, console.log navigator. Do you think this will run? See, this is now a learning opportunity even for me. Let's try. Oh, yes, it does exist. Hmm. What is the user agent? Now I'm curious. Sorry, curiosity got better of me right now. Uh, it's Node.js 2022. So there we go. Wow, I did not know that, and I learned something new. Will return Node.js version. Okay, so now we are checking if the type of navigator is not undefined, then console log this. And in Node.js 2020, in not 2022, Node.js 22, it returns node.js/22 to tell you which version of Node that the user is running. Okay, you can get navigator, which is really cool, right? What other properties exist? It has an app code name. So if I try to do app code name, it's undefined. Okay, so this is undefined. App name undefined. App version undefined. So these things are not defined. uh, Device memory undefined. Okay, so far only user agent has been one of the outputs that is good enough. But yeah, good to know, right? That user navigator exists in Node.js environment and gives you user agent, but not a lot of other properties. Do you think language would be one of the things? Oh yeah, English US. What about languages? That should return an array. There's only one. Will return array of languages. But array of languages of what? Of my device? Not sure. Uh, Again, I'll have to Google. So it's as good as you all Googling it and maybe finding it out. Mac Intel. Oh, nice. Will return platform type. I guess then this should basically mean array of languages of my device. Okay, that makes me think that it would return the array of languages of my device. So example this, example Mac Intel, and example okay. So these things work in Node.js. I know, right? Very interesting. Anyways, I guess we are now going slightly off track because I found a new toy to experiment with. Let's move ahead. But let me just push everything that we have done so far. So let me do git add all, git commit -m. We did session 1, basic JS, and git push. Perfect. So if you have not followed, like you have missed out on something, you need the code, you want to try it on your own, then here's everything. You have to just uncomment it and try it out. I will use AI like after a bit. So like after all 4 sessions are done, or maybe after the first 2 sessions are done, which should be like today, I'll use AI to clean it up, add more helpful comments so that uh, whoever runs it basically knows what to do. Okay, So maybe I'll enhance the readme, I'll add some helpful comments using AI. So yeah, just letting you know that I will be using a bit of AI to clean it up. Okay, and here you go, here's the companion repository. Okay, coming back, equals and double equals. Okay, so strict equals versus, which number would this be? Sorry, I forgot. uh, 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 we were on, this was 4, and then we did 5, and then 6. Okay, double equals versus triple equals. So I guess the as I've written the commit message, that these are basic JavaScript, and you might be like, a bit boring in it," but hopefully we'll be able to finish all of it as soon as possible, and we'll move on to something more exciting. So, double equals and triple equals. Uh, Quick answer: double equals is loosely uh, typed or loose equality, and triple equals is strict equality. What that means is that if I want to do one double equals a string representation of 1 versus one triple equals string representation of 1, these two will return different output. Okay, so the first one returns true. It goes like, yep, this is true, and this returns false. But if I try to do one double equals 2, then this should return false, right? This will return false, not should, this will return false. Okay, so what's happening here? So in loose equality, it converts the type before it compares it. Okay, and this is where chaos begins, like literal chaos, because it converts the type and then it tries to do some comparison, or not even just comparison, it also tries to do some mathematical operation based on that. Example, I can do 1 plus string 2. So it will try to convert it, 1 to a string, and then try to just join them. But if I do 1 minus 2, okay, then it tries to convert the 2 to a number, and it goes like, let me perform some operation. What about 1 multiplied by 2? Ignore that false, false, false that's written. It's just copy paste error. Or let's say 2 multiplied by 2. Converts the string part and goes like, okay, let's do that mathematical operation. What about 2, or let's say 4 divided by 2? Converts again the string part to number. So why is this plus so special? Like, why is this loose equality not here? Sorry, why is this loose equality? Like, what's happening? So loose equality addition, they try to convert the type before it does the next bit, which is like either a comparison or some sort of division or something. Okay, uh, but strict equality check, no type conversion. Okay, if they are different types, if the type of the two things that you're comparing, two values that you're comparing, is different, false immediately. Okay, so that's the difference between this, like loose equality and strict equality. Now where does chaos begin? Okay, chaos begins when you try to do a loose equality comparison. So we'll focus on comparison only first. So I make this like 0, string 0, double equals false. What will this return? It returns true. Yeah, string 0 is like double equals to false. What about empty string? True again. What about string with a space? Double equals to 0. Yep, of course it is true. Okay, and like without space also. Okay, of course it is true as well. Really? My mind can't comprehend. Okay, so but if I try all of these with strict equals, false. Okay, false. Data type is different, immediately false. Okay. So, 0 double equals false, like string 0 double equals to false. What it does? So, false will convert to 0, or like not false will convert to 0. Okay. Actually, false will convert to 0. Hmm. Yeah. False gets converted to kind of 0, or 0 converts. Wait, let me remember. Now, this is something that I have to remember rather than actually which. No, false converts to 0. Yes, false will convert to 0. And then we are basically checking, is 0 double equals to 0? Yes, it is true. Empty string double equals to false. Okay, false converts to 0. Empty string converts to 0. Again, we are checking 0 double equals to 0. True. Okay, empty string double equals to 0. It will convert empty string to 0, and 0 double equals to 0. True. Okay. Okay, and the final one is that when we have a space in between, so in when we have space in between, we first we are basically saying like trim out the white space. Okay. uh yes, so it will trim out the white space, it will convert it to 0, and then we are checking if 0 double equals to 0. That is true. Okay, and you can read about it in the JavaScript specification. Let me find the link for it. There we go. So if you want to get into like more details of what's happening and where the specification is and stuff, you can check the MDN that points to links. And also, I'm trying to just find that URL. Mm, where is it? I can't find the change the name. No, I think this should be okay. This is the link to the latest specification where it talks about equality operations, which is like double equals, not equals, not strictly equals, or exactly equals. Okay, so these have details, but I'm pretty sure there was a better version of it somewhere. uh, you'll have to check the is loosely equal, where it actually talks about what gets converted to what, like which side of the variable gets converted to what, and then it evaluates. I guess this would be a better link than permalink. Okay, so let me share this link with you all in the chat. Really, I copied this particular link and I pasted the wrong link. Sorry. Okay, so this is where you can find the JavaScript specification, and it talks about okay, what happens in terms of like double equals, not equals, triple equals, and strictly not equals. Okay, so a not equals b is equivalent to not of a double equals to b. That's fine. I have no idea how that happened. In a do not disturb mode, whatever. uh Anyways, coming back, so there's this, and there's also another equality operators. I guess this was the other one that I had. So this one also talks about like the equals operator, what it does, how it works, and it talks about like what is loosely equals. Okay, so in terms of like if you have to read through the specification, you have to basically check what is loosely equals, how it works, what it does, and so on and so forth. Like if we are checking is loosely equal, then we are checking if they are of the same type. Then in that case, check if they are strictly equal. Okay, return is strictly equal of this. If x is null and y is undefined, return true. If x is undefined, y is null. So x and y here represents like the two values that you're comparing. Okay, then return true. And then if x is a number, y is a string, then try to check this where you leave x as a number, but you try to convert y to a number. And if that does happen, in that case you have to check like is it equal. Okay, uh, if x is a string and y is a number, in that case convert the x part to a number, and then try to like there are two nots here, which is why like I'm not focusing on the not bit, because not of not is like exactly opposite, like not exactly opposite, not of not is true, yeah. But you convert the string to a number, try to convert it to a number, and then compare both of them. Okay, and that is why I was saying that in terms of like empty string or in terms of like false, what we are converting it is let's see, if there is a boolean, if x is a boolean, uh, in that case convert x to a number and then compare with y. Okay, and that is why I was saying that in terms of like 0 double equals to false, false gets converted to a number. Okay, it converts to a number, and then it compares it with 0. Okay, so string gets converted to number, false get like booleans get converted to number, as we can see right here. Okay, and that's what I had to remember. Okay, any questions about it? So what is like loosely equals? Specification actually specifies how JavaScript should work, how JavaScript should run. And in this specification, like there are like 14 different like code paths, like top level code paths. And then there are also internal code paths. So like 17, 18, maybe 20 different possibilities that can happen in when you compare with loosely equals. And it kind of lists down on everything, x on the first variable side and on the second variable side, both of them. Now that is loosely equal. Strictly equals, the focus is that they have to be of the same type. If they are of the same type, then compare the value. If they're not of the same type, immediately return false. Okay, strictly equal, if same type is false, return false. The part where I said immediately return false. If x is number, then return the number. If same value non-number, then like basically they're of the same value, but they may not be a number. They can be two strings that you are strictly comparing. Then yeah, do follow this algorithm. Okay, specification kind of goes into it. So, won't go too much in it. Interview prep, not JavaScript. Okay, the special cases in terms of these comparisons are going to be null and undefined. Now, this can be helpful, but also not helpful. So first, let's see what happens. So I'm going to do null double equals undefined and null triple equals undefined. Question to you all, what will happen? Any guesses? Anyone? What will happen? False in both cases, false for both cases. First one, true. Okay, let's try it out. Hit enter. First one true, second one false. Okay, now this is a very special case in the spec. And see, this is why you have to remember rather than you can't actually explain it. You have to be like someone who created JavaScript wrote some things. They wrote some specifications. Over the years, specification has been like enhanced, enhanced, enhanced. And we have reached a point where it has like these quirks kind of or special cases. Okay, it's like I remember like when I was learning chemistry, uh, you have exceptions. Okay, in which chemistry was it? uh, Organic chemistry. Organic chemistry, you have always had exceptions or special cases. This is one of those. Yes, exactly. uh, yes, it is exactly like chemistry exceptions, organic chemistry exceptions. Okay, so null double equals undefined in the specification, it is said that they are loosely equal to each other and to nothing else. Okay, and we actually accidentally saw that. Okay, when x is null and y is undefined, return true, and when x is undefined, y is null, return true. So either side is undefined or null, return true. Now this has a very special use case in code. Okay, maybe, okay, just think like a time where you have called the server for some data, and that data could either exist or not exist. Okay, and based on its existence you do something else. So the server can say, oh, it is null, or the server can say it is undefined. An example in Java does not have null like as a data type. I think, as far as I remember, or maybe it does, like it tries to kind of uh, tries to kind of convert it to something and then use it. Like it's basically not really nice to get like a null value from server. Okay, you have like multiple layers in between, and one of those layers, like maybe in GraphQL, sometimes it actually removes null. Okay, or it removes undefined. I am confused now. Which one? I think undefined is not in JavaScript, in Java. uh, Undefined, let me Google that. uh, yeah, okay, undefined is not in Java. I think null is, but undefined isn't. So one of those basically is not in Java. So example, if you have a server written in Java, which may return undefined or it may return null, and you have your UI written in JavaScript, and in that case, it's going to kind of depending on the server value, it decides to do some operation. The server can return undefined or null, and in both cases you don't want to do one operation, or you want to return false, or you want to throw an error, whatever be the case. In that case, you can basically fall back to checking if the value is null or undefined, okay, or loosely, okay, loosely one of these. In that case, I am happy with like not doing something. Okay, so we are kind of doing a loosely equals operation. So example, const a equals null, or and const b equals undefined. Okay, and then if not, if a double equals to null, actually let const c equals a, how do I explain, show this? If a double equals b, yeah, okay, I think this is the best way. In that case, console dot log null. So it will return null slash undefined. Okay, so you can kind of have like, okay, I'm kind of expecting, like imagine that you are expecting these values, or wherever you are writing the code, you have received these either of these values. Then in that case you can say, okay, if they are loosely equal and they must be null or undefined, that's the only way this would be possible, let's say, then you can have special conditions around it. So it does help. This special quirk does help sometimes, not always. But strictly equals, it is, there are two different data types. So false directly, okay, directly goes to false. Okay, and I guess that's it. Okay, let me see, any questions, anyone? The plus operation. Yeah, so plus operation is kind of special, and again, exceptions around it. So plus operation, what it tries to do is it tries to, yes, it is used for concatenation. It is used to join two strings, but it can also be used to sum two numbers. So in terms of like number and string, when you use the plus operation, it tries to convert the non-number to a string and tries to join them together. Okay, uh, to remember it that ways, similar to the specifications in like the loosely equal specification, there will be a add specification on mathematical or numerical plus specification, where it will be like, okay, you want to add two things, one of them is a string, then convert the non-string to a string and add them. I guess one of like one thing to kind of check slash question for you before we take a break, because we are nearly like end of the session. So false plus, actually let me type it out here, false plus hello, what will this return? This is boolean, this is string, what will this return? Anyone in the chat before we like kind of wrap up this part one of the session? String, okay, let's try it out and hit enter. False hello, yes. So one side is boolean, yes, perfect. That is good to both of you, kudos to both of you. Thank you so much. Yes, one side is boolean, the other side is string. There's a plus operation which is used normally for concatenation, converts the non-string side to a string side, like not string side to a string, and then joins them. Okay. Can I subtract false and hello? You tried to do a mathematical operation but failed. Okay. And it returns not a number. Okay. I guess this is like one of the best things that I can leave you all with. Uh, and I'll also add the link to the specification. Is less is loosely permalink. Copy. C spec. And there we go. And git add all, git commit. I'll amend my previous commit because I am picky about the number of commits that I will push. So there should only still be 3 commits, even though we did 4. And the basic JS one should have everything that we wrote. Okay, cool. Any questions, anyone? Before we end this particular session, I have the second session right after this. But 2 hours of non-stop listening to me, I think you all deserve a break. So have some water, walk around, take a quick break, and then we will join back after this. But before we go off, I have one request, which is feedback. If you liked this session or if you didn't like this session, okay, either of them, okay, please fill the feedback form. This should be quick enough. Should not take more than 5 minutes. So while you are drinking water, watching anime, just quickly go into this. It was Be Interview Prepared, JS and React Part 1. Provide your rating, provide any feedback, any constructive criticism from you all will be most welcome. On how can I improve my sessions, what can I do correct, like what can I do better, pace wise, and I don't know, content wise or anything. Like it will help me plan for my future ones. And if you liked it, even that would be great. Okay, then it will kind of give me that ego boost and motivation to continue doing what I'm doing. Okay, so please do provide feedback if possible. Thank you so much. And the time right now is 10:58. We will loosely equal it to 11 a.m. GMT. That's where I am. And 15 minutes later, so 11:15 GMT, we will be back for session 2. I will post it on Discord. I will start the stream like 5 minutes earlier, but you don't have to join until 11:15. Okay. And if there are no questions, I'm glad you had fun. Thank you so much for joining. If you had fun, please do join me for the part 2, which happens right after, where we will continue our JavaScript work. We will kind of get into more questions. Okay. So I will have some code snippets already created, which will be like commented out. We'll uncomment them, and I'll ask you. You can give me quick answers of, okay, this is what will happen. You don't have to run it. You just have to kind of tell me like, possibly this is what's going to happen, and then yeah, that would be part 2 of these sessions, all JavaScript. Before we move to React in part 3 and part 4. Cool. See you in a bit. Thank you so much, everyone. Cheers. Bye bye.